Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of The Unfiltered Truth. I'm your host, Phil Jones, Phil Robinson, as always, from the far, far west. And today we are joined by special guest, Megan Imbert. That's how you say it?
That is how you say it. Good job.
Okay, because I know some folks will be like, oh, I think I butchered it.
No, you're good.
Okay, so Megan is one of the former employees of the Washington football team, and she's also directly involved with Beth Wilkinson's report that she did on the football team. What was it, about a year ago?
We basically, the Washington Post articles broke July of 2020, followed by subsequent articles in August of 2020. That's when the investigation was really getting underway. And then our law firm, Lisa Banks, got involved. And so basically, it was roughly around the time of August to probably, I don't even know, it's been about 10 months. And we don't really have clarity on when the investigation actually ended. But what we do know is Dan Snyder got 100% ownership before the conclusion of the investigation, which is one of my sticking points on how appalling this whole situation has been and a lack of transparency. So I can't really tell you exactly when it ended, unfortunately.
And, I saw reports of, when other emails came out that Pash had got involved, working within, the NFL league office. So when you look at that, he took over that investigation and Wilkinson was going to report to him. I mean, yeah, you're wondering, like, okay, is it done? Are we going to be fair and balanced with this?
Well, one thing that's really evident, we were working closely, at least my law firm, with Lisa Friel. And I don't know the chain of command, but I would assume Lisa was probably reporting into that individual that came out with the leaked emails. We know that Lisa Friel was quoted in the article about how the environment proved to be toxic. It didn't align to the values that we hold for owners. And after that, it's really been radio silence. In fact, the group of women that I've been very vocal with, we were trying to get time with Lisa. We've reached out to her even off the record. We're looking for transparency. And it's really kind of like, hey, yeah, acknowledge, but they're not willing to talk to us. So my gut feeling is that based on how we're seeing Roger Goodell and the narrative that he recently has had, it wouldn't surprise me if he's just kind of silenced her in this process. So my hope in all of this is that these folks ultimately end up getting a subpoena congressional hearing around this, and that would include her, hopefully. And in addition to that, all the folks that are involved that could shed some light on how this actually went down.
Now, from your time with the Washington football team, I believe that was back from 2006 to 2011?
Yeah, that's perfect. So I actually started as an intern, as some of us, especially the ones that have come on record, a lot of us, that was our first real job out of college. So 2006 to 2007, I was an intern. I started out in the PR department. Then I moved on into the TV broadcast department under Larry Michael, where I had my full-time job. And then I ended up leaving in 2011 on my own accord around the lockout time period. I actually gave them about 6 weeks notice of my departure. Okay. And I apologize if I'm correcting my dog. If you hear her, she's got a bone now. In case any of the viewers are like, what's going on in her room here?
No, you're good.
What's her name?
Her name is Sky, and she's a rescue pit bull. And actually, yesterday was Pit Bull Awareness Day. So
yes, I have pit bulls, so that's really great.
Awesome.
Yes, red nose or blue?
She's a blue.
I got a red nose.
Oh, cute. Anyway, that's what my life has become, this investigation, work, and my dog.
Hey, you got your dog. That's all that matters right now.
Just keep those good vibes only going.
You saw this, right?
Yes. Yes, I did. So what was the environment like? I mean, that's pretty much the question that everybody wants to know. And I know that there's only so much that you probably can tell us. So what you can share, please. What was it like? What is?
I think what's important to note is during the time of Dan Snyder's ownership, we're talking over 20 years a span. And we've had people come forward throughout that entire time in all different departments. So I know there's been a lot of attention around the cheerleaders, rightfully so. They were split in different ways. But at the same time, there were men and women that are part of this investigation. So, I mean, upon entering the building, it's really a culture based in fear. It's very hostile, a lot of hot tempers, a lot of constant yelling and cursing around you. It's kind of like a joke. If you're not cursing, you're not working kind of mentality. There wasn't a lot of tact. There really wasn't professionalism at all. The best way I can put it is everybody was subject to this type of environment. And I think the ones that more so were the ladies like myself that came in there basically as 19, 20, 21-year-old, very impressionable years. Oftentimes, a lot of comments about our looks all the time, like what we're wearing. I mean, it just became like in one ear, out the other ear. And I mentioned yesterday on Jason Luck and Forrest podcast, and I was just, some of these memories just start to come up even when talking with you guys because we suppress things. But I remember I even started to get to the point where I was like, all right, I'm going to wear my hair up. I'm not going to wear any makeup. I wore like the football team logo basketball shorts, so they were a little bit looser, but there were still comments made. So it just was this environment, especially very, very sexually charged. I think obviously the ratios between men and women, that can often happen, but it doesn't make it okay. And this is the time where now we have more and more women in marginalized communities entering this workforce. We need to make sure that's a safe environment. So fundamentally, we're after that meaningful change where everyone feels safe to go to work and follow their dreams. So to your point, it was not only a sexually charged harassment type of environment, there's also a lot of just bullying and fear-based, long hours, terrible pay, all of the gamut you could think of. And it's embarrassing even when I start to talk about it because it's like we put up with so much and we were constantly reminded people are going to do that job for free because you have access. Like people will do things for free when they have access to celebrity and entertainment. And you see that with Harvey Weinstein. You see this with other entertainment. It's like, people think with money and power, you get away with this because you have this access and privilege. But we just, it's enough. Time's up on it. Like, yeah.
Nobody should have to go into any sort of workforce where you have to feel uncomfortable 24/7 each and every day that you go in. And it becomes sickening because it just messes with your mental, and you're just like, you start to second guess whether or not you want to come into work. You start to second guess, like, is this the right field I want to be in, or is this the right job I want to be with?
You know what, Phil, you bring up an amazing point that we're not really discussing a lot of is the mental health and the consequences, even that, sorry.
Sky.
She's like, now I want to get out. And I'm like, what are you going to do when you're out there? The mental health that we all have to deal with that as a result of that environment. And especially those of us that dealt with sexual abuse or trauma, harassment, that impacts your relationships. That impacts your trust. Yeah. Also, when you're in a culture, in a workplace that's toxic, you almost have PTSD when you go to another place. I remember when I ended up it was Symantec Corporation after I left the football team, and I was a contractor within public sector marketing. And I remember my boss at the time, he asked me how my day was, and he was waiting around for an answer. And I feel like I was just kind of frozen. Like, this man is asking me how my day is and is waiting. Like, I was not really used to that at all, which is, it sounds crazy, but it's what it was. And, I think once I started doing the investigation, really talking about this stuff, it really made me realize that I and my friends, my family, they all know I kind of have that workaholic mentality. I go hard, I work really, really hard, but I think a lot of my drive was based around this sense of fear almost. It's not a healthy relationship with work. There needs to be balance. So that's something personally, like I'm 35. I left there at 25. I'm working on.
Right. No, I've experienced something, not quite on that level, but a hostile work environment is a terrible thing to be in, especially when you spend more time there than you do any place else with the people you love and care about. So
exactly.
That sucks big time.
Well, one thing I'm curious your all's perspective on too, and this is something I brought up, is from a male perspective. We know that there are men that were bullied and demeaned. I would love for some of them to come forward, but I don't believe that they would be truly supported by the way our society has stigmas. Can you imagine a man coming forward to talk about how he was bullied in the workplace? Like, I'm hoping that the world can start to rally around that, because men are impacted here too, you know? And I think that's a conversation that needs to be had.
No, absolutely. In fact, that was one of the things that when I was reading about this and looking at it, I was like, wait a minute. So men were involved in this? Because usually when you hear about this type of environment, it's usually one-sided directed towards the women, especially in dealing with the NFL, with the whole optics of the good old boys club and the people in power, with the nice young ladies coming in fresh out of college who don't know any better. But yeah, would they be supported? There would be, in the past, no, absolutely not. They would be ostracized. They'd be looked down upon, and to some extent they probably still would. But I believe that with everything that's come out with this, that if they were to come forward, that they would at least be heard.
I hope so, because honestly, the things that I think need to be heard are often the stories that need to be corroborated, that probably do involve men that are too scared to come forward. But the women, for whatever reason, we're so tired of it. We're willing to do that, you know? And,
you know, especially when you're talking about with the men, I heard one of the reports that they had them get up on the table and start dancing, or, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's some folks that people wanted so much to be liked in part of the owner circle, that whatever happened there, and I didn't witness that. I'm thankful that I didn't, frankly, but the people that I think were involved in those kinds of situations, they just so desperately almost had like that fanboy mentality of they wanted to be liked by the players. They wanted to be liked by the coaches. They wanted to be a part of that circle, the owner circle. And that's also one of the things too, that, you know, even if we had an altercation or a situation with a player and we would go to management, it was like, we already knew that player is more valuable than us and we're a distraction. So it became this thing where it's like, just deal with it. You know, you got to try to deal with it. I had some players that stuck up for me in certain situations, which I don't want to get into the details on here, but I'm thankful for them because they knew, they saw, you know, they knew what was going on.
No, that sounds like a very tough situation to be in, and thank God for those players. What I'm curious about, and hopefully you can touch on it. If not, then it is what it is. How much time did you spend talking to Beth Wilkinson? How much? What can you tell us about that particular interview process, or how? Let's say not how she went about her investigation, but all that you can in the league's attempts to get the story of the employees.
So what I will say about the Wilkinson investigation, and I trust my lawyer, Lisa Banks and Deborah Katz. They were present during our interviews, at least the 40 represented by Lisa Banks. So Lisa Banks was in the room. She knows what our accounts were. I can't talk to you about all the things that were said or length of time, but let's just say it is mind-boggling that anyone would assume that there aren't any notes or any findings of 150 accounts. I know what my investigation looked like. And also, you know, they were there. Sorry, Sky, please. She's going after the bookshelf now. I'm so sorry. She's like, I'm over this today. I was going to just say that, you know, it wasn't disclosed to us before we were doing this interview that, or part of the investigation, that, you know, a report wouldn't be produced. It was not, I didn't know that I might have needed to ask for clarity on what's the next steps, what's the process. It was assumed to me that there would be a report given precedent. I mean, Deflategate had a 243-page report. Right. And here we are, 150 people, 0 pages, an oral report. What is that? You didn't want a paper trail. This whole thing is just insulting to our intelligence. And at this point, I'm really hoping fans can see that too.
I think fans are at that point where they are seeing it and they are fed up. And, you know, just going back and looking at how last week's events went, where oh yeah, we're just gonna put we're gonna do a whole remembrance of Sean Taylor last minute. We're gonna call the family up last minute. We're gonna do a whole rah-rah presentation of, oh yeah, here we're unveiling the new street sign in front of the porta potties. I was just like, if you want to be that slick, at least,
Sorry, I'm gonna let her out real quick.
you're good.
Okay.
At least do it with some respect. But I mean, I think fans are at the point where they're just fed up with the organization and what they've been doing, and enough is enough.
Yes, exactly. The Sean Taylor thing, and I have to try to do my best to not let these things hit a real personal chord for me. But I knew Sean. In fact, Sean was the one that opened the door for me at Redskin Park. Washington football team. When I went in for my interview, and I'll never forget that. And even when he had his daughter, I'd be working on production at night, and he would bring Jackie by when she was a baby, and they'd stop in, say hi, how are you doing, Megan? And it was just like insult to injury when I saw how that went down. And I was really close to Sean's coach, and it's just really sad. I mean, Coach Gibbs would have loved to have been there. I know that. And I think all of the players that worked with him would have liked that as well. It's one of those things too, where I want fans to just be very aware that there's probably like a war room in Ashburn. I'm making an assumption here. This is how my imagination's working. That probably has like 4 breaking news stories. We're going to pull this one off the shelf. There's probably going to be something soon around, the name or some trade or something happening, something to deflect. And I just want everyone to keep their eyes wide open that this is just a charade. It's actually becoming a circus, if I could make a fair analogy.
I think definitely after hearing you guys come out on Twitter yesterday evening and voicing what you needed to say, I think a lot of fans, I think the entire NFL fan base is getting ready to be truly behind you guys on this, because if you've had one guy get fired out of this whole entire situation, and you're finding out that you have someone within the league offices involved in this, and then you look at, we're looking at all these emails to these court cases between Snyder and Allen, and then you just go one step after another and another and another. You're like, oh, come on. It's written on the wall.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. Now, as far as the leaks go, the Gruden leaks, I'm really glad that happened because it shed light that this is a league-wide issue. It also brought the players into it a bit. There's also some coaches, especially with the racist comments. It really intersected the Black Lives Matter movement, all of the stuff around Colin Kaepernick, and then, of course, the Me Too movement. It's astounding, and I feel like a lot of this is like very impulsive and probably not thought through. But I mean, the amount of momentum the past couple of weeks, it's been a roller coaster whirlwind, and it's amazing to me because it's like, we thought the story was kind of hush, and we were trying to think through, like, how are we going to move this forward? And then all of a sudden, it's this leak and that leak. And I'm sitting here like, this is amazing. It's terrible, but it's amazing because it just sheds light on this being a bigger problem.
No, absolutely. The Lord works in mysterious ways. I was trying to make sense of it. It's like, and the way that it came about was that I even got confused trying to keep up with the news with Ryan Vermillion having his house raided by the DEA. And then it was like, then Gruden's getting fired. I was like, so did they get these emails from raiding his house? No, it's from an investigation almost a year ago. I was like, well, wait a minute, what the hell's going on over here?
Right.
That we're going back to back, and then I could go on a long run on that, but the timing is something that's completely suspect, and looking at all of this is quite disgusting, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm glad you used the word disgusting because it's really how I've been feeling. So I was a part of figuring out that the 2 cheerleader videos existed.
Yeah.
And that was my department, and the amount of betrayal I personally feel frankly, I was coming forward anonymously until I found out about that. When I found out about that, it was like, hey, Will Hobson, hey, Lisa Banks, I'm going on record. It happened so fast. I was so angry, and I'm still angry. And there's no, like, to me, it's unforgivable, really. And at this point, I thought that would have been enough. I thought that would have been enough to show that how is this not indicative of what was going on in that building? And you actually have, private parts of these women exposed to Dan Snyder's favorite bands, who I believe was created at the order of the owner. And I trust Brad Baker, who came on record, and he's really brave for doing that. It's disgusting. That's like that's the word. And I look at this, like, all of us just keep reliving our experiences, and it's just like, it's crazy. And I won't turn down an interview at this point, because I want more people to understand and know that there's people behind this and what we've been through. And where there's only a few of us being vocal, trust that there's like hundreds of people. We only had about 150 people that we know of participate in the investigation. And I know that there's more that wanted to, but the investigation was quote unquote done. So that's when I think about Congress and this oversight committee. I want everybody to be heard if they weren't able to participate.
No, everybody needs to be heard. Everybody's voice needs to be heard. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, I see how this team is trying to do this and that to try to sway people the other way. But I'm like, I wanted to get your voice out there. I was trying to get Rachel to come on. I know it's been busy today for you guys.
They'll do it.
So I was just like, it doesn't matter. I want one of you guys to come on, even if it was all three of you guys to come on.
Well, I hope you continue to invite us. I mean, there's so much to be said on this, and definitely. The way the process has been, like, it's such a shame, because this is like, I mean, when you think about Deflategate and the PSI of game balls, or you think about the Ray Rice scandal or other things, and it's like, this could be multiple things. And obviously we know that this could be really so damning that they don't want it to be. So rather than facing the issue head on, and I'm not calling for cancel culture, I'm calling for the culture to evolve. I'm calling for accountability and change. So at this point, Roger Goodell should not be the commissioner either. I think this has shown some true colors on complete mismanagement of this entire situation.
Because, one thing I caught from his little presser yesterday, he said that, oh, yeah, we were here to, protect the victims. And I'm like, hold on, what?
Yeah, no, he's never been about protecting us whatsoever. That is completely false. We were riding a little bit of a high, rooting on Melanie and Anna as they went to New York City yesterday, which I would have loved to do, but I couldn't have made that trip with everything going on. But we're all excited about that. And then to see that presser, it's just like being gaslit all over again. Oh, we did this. We're doing this for the victims. The victims are right outside. The victims are right here telling you we want to see the findings. And there's a way to redact our names. There's a way to actually protect us if you wanted to do that. You're not about protecting us.
After looking at Snyder versus Allen's court cases, you can look at everything that's been redacted. And everything that I found, I'm like, everybody's name got redacted. When it came down to looking at Schefter's, his name got redacted. When you piece the two together, you're like, that's John Gruden talking right there. But you still had his name redacted and the rest that were in those email threads.
There's a way to do this. These are professional law firms, very well respected, high profile law firms. There's a way to pull together the truth and give the public a line of sight into the actual experiences. And, it's just really, it's really a shame. And I'm hoping from what we're doing right now that folks that might work at other franchises really start demanding that their owners support this as well.
No, and hearing what Mark Davis did today, he said, "No, I feel that I feel like these emails should come to light." And
I think that's amazing that he came forward. I implore the other ones to come forward. We know that he directly has been impacted by this investigation. So he has a vested interest now in understanding what's been going on. And that partially is upsetting because you want everyone out of the goodness of their heart to want to know the findings so that they can foster healthy environments. Also, we still haven't heard from any major sponsor from our letter from 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm losing track of time, but they still have been radio silent as well. So I would expect that companies like Nike, et cetera, have corporate values and are praising diversity and inclusion. This is a massive moment to support us.
Now, who are the sponsors again?
Off the top of my head, Pepsi, Anheuser-Busch, Procter & Gamble, Amazon, Nike, Verizon. There might be a couple more, but those were the major ones. There's obviously local ones as well, but they all have corporate initiatives. They all care about diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
So, I think we just need to follow the money trail, and my hope is with Congress and this oversight committee at this point.
Now, have Congress been able to, any of the representatives been able to reach out to you guys?
Not at this point, but we're hoping in the next steps that the future we'll be able to have some kind of conversation. And in addition to that, we would love to talk to any organization like the NFLPA, and some of those that have come through. Malcolm Jenkins has his organization as well. I think there's some intersection points that potentially there's ways we can work together. But we'll see. I mean, all of this has happened really quickly, so we're trying to really just get ahead of what could happen. But all of us are ready for, if we're called upon to head to Congress and be part of a hearing, we're saying, let's go. We have nothing to hide in it. And that's the only way we're going to see progress. So I would just hope that if anyone's listening, that it might be a part of any of those organizations. We want all the support we can get.
No, definitely. And you should. With a matter like this, nobody should be sitting radio silent. As much as you see with folks trying to come at Dave Chappelle, you see everybody trying to jump in on that. You see we could just go down the list on certain folks, and you see everybody ready to we're here to speak on this. We want to speak on that. But on your matter, it's unacceptable that everybody is taking their time to come out and say something on you guys' behalf, because we see this going on, not just in this workplace, but it's been going around in a lot of workplaces around the U.S. and probably overseas as well. It's got to stop, because you get to the point where there's some folks that have endured it so much, they get to the point where, you know what? You wonder why someone has shot up a work office because, well, she was being harassed, she was being bullied, threatened. You just go down the list, and it's just like, well, maybe if you had set this up, did you got what was going on? Speaking of which, what was going on with the HR department?
It's a great question. We went through a series of reorganizations, and there was a period of time where we literally had one person that was actually not an HR person, but an office manager. And that's one of the things that I've questioned too, like record keeping. There were no policies. Even if people did go to HR with something, there really wasn't anything that person could do. Not that person didn't want to do something. I'll be very clear on that. But that fundamentally, when people start acting like, oh, Dan Snyder was far removed from the organization, leadership 101, you have to have an HR department. You have to have some policies in place. Mm-hmm. And also when you think about situations like Alex Santos, who was, an athlete growing up, and then the scouting department, and of course, made some comments to folks and everything, terrible behavior. I can't help but think about someone like that. Had they gotten the proper training, that this whole situation could have been prevented, at least for him. And I think that's a disservice. And that's one of the things, we've contributed to some of the recommendations that the league and other teams could take place is like, all right, let's look big picture. Outside of us, how can we help foster change? I think there needs to be a third party that handles actual HR concerns, not going to the direct team and not going to the league. What we're seeing right now is that there are connections between the team and the league. There's people that may have worked at other teams. There's a lot of loyalties. Obviously, there's something else there where it's not really, you're going to see potentially retaliation or other backlashes, right? Like for me, will I ever potentially, if I wanted to, get hired by an NFL franchise ever again in my life?
Would you? Yeah.
I mean, it's just a question.
You're gonna face the
it's just a question. Would I ever get hired by a major sports organization?
Nope.
The only thing I can think of is when I see someone like Amy Trask speak out, and I can only hope she's going to replace Roger Goodell. That's only me starting that rumor. I would love for that to happen.
That's not the first time we've heard it.
If she made the phone call to me and had a role, like I'm hoping like she would call up all of us that had the courage to come forward and try to do what was right. This is all something I'm fabricating in my brain, but you know, a lot of us that did come forward are no longer in this industry. We literally ran away from it. Whereas the NFL puts out these marketing messages on women, keep going. You can look at this. This happened this past year. I will never forget. I was just like jaw drop on LinkedIn, and the NFL had a campaign of like about women in sports, women in football, and just keep going. And it's like, look, like read the room. This is what you're sending out as there's an investigation going on. And I'm sorry, I couldn't keep going. You know, like, why don't we release the report and then see if you'll tell everyone to keep going? You know,
they kept going away from it. That's what they did. They followed their own advice. Kept that underneath the rug, kept pushing. We talk about transparency, 650,000 emails. We all coach of a different team. It's the only thing to see here. Everybody keep pushing. Never mind the fact that the team president is circulating topless photos of the cheerleading staff.
That is sickening. Like,
don't know how they managed to overlook that, but I guess that's neither here nor there. I would assume, but
yeah, Phil, you're bringing up so many things for me. It's like, I had a conversation last night with somebody that I just basically said, like, look, a few of these people made some mistakes. There's probably a lot of folks that are having a hard time sleeping at night because they're worried, like, oh, is my email going to get leaked next or something? They're probably I'm hoping they're thinking about their behavior. But it does shed light on if they were to come forward and own, like, hey, I made some mistakes, or you know what? I have a shred of decency. I have some integrity. I'm willing to step down and let someone else have this position. That's the kind of courage that I think the human condition can be redeeming. I think there's a moment in time, even the people that might have been in my department that were a part of producing those videos, there's still a moment in time for you to have that shred of integrity and say, look, here's the truth. And they would, not to say they'd be a hero. Everyone understands why you're scared to come forward if this was asked of you, right? You were doing what was unfortunately told to you to do. But I think the society we live in, we are forgiving by nature when people do own their mistakes. And there's a moment of, you know what, this was wrong. And I take responsibility. I think what we've seen out of the Snyder camp is we've never seen any accountability. It was more, I've been so hands off, or but which we know is not true, but there's just never been that personal level of accountability or any compassion. You know, Tanya Snyder, her remarks even today, it still seems very like victim card. I didn't read the whole article. I was just worried about my own sanity today. Honestly, I was like, I'm not even going to read this yet. But before.
But I kind of figured Snyder, you know, he said, yeah, I'm going to stay back. We all knew he wasn't. He can't help it.
Just using a buffer. That's all he was doing. But you had mentioned gaslighting now, and we had previously touched on mental health. I got to believe that a lot of you had been sent into some type of depression and some other things. You don't necessarily have to speak on that or name names, but I'd be willing to bet that there's a lot of like you said, PTSD going through, because you wake up every day and all you can think about is how terrible a place that was, and how you dealt with so many things that, as now you said you were 35, that you would never ever allow yourself to have to deal with it ever again.
Yeah. And I like that we're having this conversation because it's so relevant, and this is where you really get to know people. I think a lot of us, and I'll speak for especially those that are unspoken, there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of embarrassment. There's even folks that, they've had to have, even when working there, tough conversations with their family, or you would notice people starting to get hot tempered, or it was kind of like you almost became that product of that environment. And I can't speak for everyone related to like being depressed or anything like that, but I definitely think it has impacted different relationships, and a lot of us that we're trying to get the help that we need and really do some introspection on what that experience, how that's impacted our life. But certainly I think it really doesn't help our mental state when we're going through this roller coaster ride of trying to get literally all of these people. It's like, I'm laughing about it. It's such a serious matter, but it's like so mind-blowing that this is what we're doing. This is what we're going through to get this to be taken seriously. Like, I don't even have the words. It's just appalling, really. So I think right now I'm most concerned for all of us that keep speaking out, because this is just like constant, like, but I'm glad the fans and everyone's supporting us, because, and I'm hoping more people come forward that can take on some of the on record press stuff for us to give us a little bit of a break. I think It will be helpful. But I appreciate it. Like, we need the airtime. We need people to know what we went through. But it's a really good point. And I think in an environment like that, if people are unhappy, you're going to see, especially in sports where, people are on the road a lot, there might be different vices that they have, whether it be alcohol, sex, whatever it might be. There could be issues people have all been working through too. So I think it's an interesting concept in general on, kind of like on the road mentality or locker room talk. Like, it's all kind of one and the same, where I'm sure there's probably people that are just ashamed of some of their behaviors.
Yeah, and as they should be. But I'm sorry, I'm just at a loss of words. It's sickening. The entire thing is sickening. Yeah. And now, what was it? It was Melanie Coburn, right? Coburn.
Yes.
Now, did you know anything about the lawsuit he had tried to drag her into, right?
The lawsuit?
I think with the one with Bruce Allen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon for people to have asked us if there was any kind of relationship to Bruce Allen or if we had been getting paid. That's pretty common for any of us that have gone on record. Yeah. That's just,
No,
not to lessen it. It's things to be expected,
No, absolutely.
And I do feel like I need to do a better job of not looking at the Twitter comments, because I'm just like, that will make me angry. How do you like all the settlement money, all that stuff? And it's like, no, I'm a good, decent person trying to do what's right.
There comes a certain.
Trust me, we know where your mindset is, and we know where your heart is. And look, Twitter. Look, as Dave Chappelle said, Twitter's not a fucking real place. All right,
no,
it's not a real fucking place.
Well, it's helped us.
Twitter
has helped us.
At times,
it has.
It's helped us. Twitter's a real place to me.
I mean,
honestly, like, that's where I would always go for the breaking news. That's where, if something happened, we're popping it off there first,
Right.
Nah, definitely. It's like Jekyll and Hyde with Twitter. You get the goods of like, okay, all right. And then you get the, okay, I need to just close the door right here and just walk away.
It took me a while. I'm kind of a Twitter rookie, and I finally realized there's like the GIFs or whatever. So I'm like posting all animated things all the time, like the eye rolls and stuff. And then I kept saying enough is enough, and someone made one of those memes out of it. And I'm cracking up because I want to put it at like
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally get it. What a lot of people don't understand is that if you have any type of human decency, any type of self-respect, there comes a time when the money has no object. You couldn't pay me enough for my self-respect, and that's what's
actually one of the parting words I said to someone when I was deciding to quit there. Actually,
no, I trust me.
Literally, by quote, it's amazing what you just said there. It was like, no, you don't respect me.
Yeah, and you couldn't pay me enough to continue to put up with disrespect.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's key. I mean, it's the money part of this it's the disheartening part of it, because it's obviously impacting how people are responding, how they're doing all the consequences and things too. Like that's the trail everybody needs to follow. You know, I think we just scratched the surface on something and we don't know what else is out there or part of this investigation. So how are we ever going to really know and have accountability or have a safe work environment? And then on top of that, all of the world, the women, the young kids that are watching, this is a terrible message to show them what we're trying to push through for the past 15 months and how the struggle, right?
Yeah.
But I don't regret any of it. I would do it again. I'm going to keep doing it. And what I've made very clear, we're not going to be quiet and you can't silence us. And we have one of the best law firms out there. So I feel like we're in a solid place. It's just, you know, more and more people like, please help us here.
I totally get it. I totally get it and understand.
Definitely. And
well, I really appreciate you all having me. My dog is becoming a terror, and I do apologize to listeners. I'm like, what is she getting into? But happy to join you all another time as well. And I know the rest of the crew would do that too. It's just been a really, really long 24 hours.
I believe it, and it's going to be a long week.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. This is not over.
Not even close.
Megan,
well, thank you.
Megan, I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate you sharing your story with our listeners. I feel that everybody needs to hear this, and for this to get out, you're going to have folks really opening their eyes, like, you know what? Where are them damn emails? These folks have endured too much. Everybody needs the answers now. Everybody needs to hear what came out.
I want everyone to think through this too. Imagine we are your sister, your niece, your wife, your girlfriend. Like, it's more than a game. I would love to have a beer and watch football with y'all one day. Not today, not Sunday. You know, I'm not there for that right now.
Nah, I don't blame you at all.
You know? Well, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much for your time and your words.
Great.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys tuning in with us. If you guys were getting in late to the show, you guys can recap it on our YouTube page and on our Facebook page, The Unfiltered Truth. And you can also hear this on Spotify. Just look for The Unfiltered Truth. I'll put out the link tomorrow when it's uploaded. Other than that, you guys take care. God bless. And retweet this out where this can go viral, because the voices need to be heard.
Everywhere. By everyone.
Everybody's got a job right now. I wanted her to hear it. I wanted her to get her voice out. You can retweet this out where everybody else all around can hear it. And
I would say just pay attention before you go and buy those tickets and that merchandise. Think about where your money's going. There's a way to peacefully tell them, you know, we just really need the groundswell. We need the help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You guys take care. God bless and enjoy the rest of your evening.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.